You're listening to Style as Identity.
Yes, we're your hosts. I'm Frankie Aquazum.
And I'm Lola Quintero. So, is starting a brand on your vision board?
Or do you just love fashion and want us to talk nerdy to you?
Either way, we got you.
Join us as we get into aspects of the trade that you might not find online. We're uncovering truths from the founders and designers daring to build within their vision and values.
These brands, they're shifting our understanding of the style status quo. And the more time we spend with them, the more we expect from what we wear and the brands that sell them.
So, we're glad you're here.
Let's do this.
Hi, Lola.
Hi, Frankie.
Okay, so we've talked to some brands as part of this origin theme. We've talked to the Øther, started with the Øther, Sheila Rashid, Savant Studio, Bhavya Ramesh. And when you were envisioning this theme, we talked a little bit about what it should look like, and we landed on origin, and would love for you to talk through like what that really meant to you.
So a little Easter egg for people that don't know and want to be in the know. A lot of our themes come from a typical online retailer shopping experience, right? So you go to Sense or Matches Fashion or wherever. Oftentimes our user experience is to select the gender. And then when you go to the page, the PDP product description page, it tells us about the material of a garment or the backstory or whatever it is. And so taking from that structure, the word origin was really interesting to me because there's this newer thing in brands that say like made in Portugal, designed in New York. And we've talked about this getting our spidey senses going a little bit, because what does it mean to be made in Portugal and designed in New York? Is that saying, hey, Portugal has amazing materials, but cheaper or lower cost labor, and the design is what we covet being from New York? And these are marketing terms to help the consumer be really, just to endear them to the brand, endear us as customers into the brand. And, what do, Frankie? We're always like, why? And so it was really like, well, how do we define where a brand is from and its origin? If it says made in Portugal and designed in New York, we all know Apple products say this. We all know it says designed in California. And so is the answer straightforward? Obviously not. It's nuanced. So we're like, let's talk to some brands about their origin stories and see what comes up. I mean, Frankie, it was really nice being able to interview a brand, Sheila Rashid from Chicago. We're always in America, we've hit California-based brands, New York-based brands, and we haven't really been able to start to explore other areas of America, geographic areas, and love the fact that we get to learn about Chicago. The thing we noticed is that some people in brands hide elements of their identity or makeup, right? Made in Portugal, designed in New York. Not saying they all do that, but they're choosing what elements to put forward and what they're associating with it, the geography and what the thing that's happening in that location. And so it allows brands to almost, we could say, manufacture who they are. And for some, it defines them. Nyla, her origin story is really what defines the brand and what shines through and the purpose for the brand. So that was a little bit about that.
And honestly, when you first shared this, I was excited about it because, we talk a lot about shopping local when we think about like produce, where you get your food, but like shopping local for style is also something that I think has always been a part of my self-expression, like who's around me, who's creating, representing them. And even, when we thrift, that's essentially what we're doing, right? You're like shopping past articles, things that were previously owned by people who live in your vicinity. And you see that when you go to like even chain thrift stores in different neighborhoods in New York, like they all kind of have a different feel to them. So I was very, very excited. And you and I have talked a lot about, dinner service was a different theme, but like that's a local brand. I know you're wearing it right now. Savant Studio, one of these four, they're based in New York. We talked a lot about Brooklyn Circus. Some of these, I would say like local brands. Love talking to Sheila too from Chicago. And, I think something that we talk about too is like building a brand in your place of origin also helps to contribute to like how people connect and how they feel like they belong to the space.
You're just talking about New York and locals. And I am thinking about the books that I bought this year for the holidays to give people.
Ooh, like reading books?
Like physical reading books, not on digital.
It's so funny. I was like, when you said books, I was like, Were they cookbooks? Were they coffee? Because sometimes people gift books that aren't even for reading, like coffee table books, which no shade to that. Like, I think I love a coffee table book. I love to stare at it, love to open it every now and then. But yeah. Oh, reading books. Very fun.
Well, I gave you the cute Beautyland one, but Erica, our other producer, I gave her the Locavore guide and I gave a few other people this book and it's also digital, my bad, but I gave the people the physical version of this book. It's a directory of small businesses in New York City. It reminds me of like the Yellow Pages. For anyone that doesn't know what the Yellow Pages are, I sat on them as a child to see higher. The Locavore is a variety store that you can actually go to in New York City and shop local brands. But they also made a book, like a whole ass directory of small businesses to shop. And I think it brings us back to the physical of like, you can have this neighborhood feel. And I think that also brings us back to the origin. And I was like so happy to see that they did this research and excavation and put it into a physical book. So anyway, that just got me wanting to shout that you should go to Locavore NYC on Instagram.
Is it like locavore, like omnivore?
Yes. Yeah, they're sick. And then also relating back to the part of this podcast that we love is asking why and the business behind things. The Locavore NYC, it's almost like a paid sponsor for them.
Yeah, it is, but it is, but it's not, but it will have that effect. It could. Yeah.
Right. I paid them for 3 books and now I'm
Now you're promoting.
now I'm promoting. But the sick part is she did a reel that was like, "Hey everybody, I made this book. I spent X number of dollars to produce it and then this is how many I sold and this is how much money I made." And so for people that right like want to start a business or want to self-publish a book and blah blah blah, it just like I love the transparency around that because it really starts to show how much effort goes towards something and then how long it takes to make a profit off of it if it's ever done. And she spent like a whole month marketing it, which I think also we sometimes talk about like releasing something isn't the same as launching it. Like launching it is like this whole ass marketing plan. But anyway, so I loved hearing the backstory and how she brought this to fruition.
That is what we're trying to do with this podcast.
Man, we should do a collab with them. Anyway, we can. Okay, so Frankie, one of my favorite parts of the Nyla episode is she said that validation does not come from others, it comes from within. And you did you pushed her on it a little bit. You were like, actually, I think when we see other people finding validation in themselves, we can, like you said it more eloquently, but you're like, we can feel inspired to then find it within ourselves. And this whole theme on connection and belonging. And I think brands like hers and like the people we talked with, they do show us that external validation that you're talking about.
Yes, they do. I will say something that the origin theme did that I didn't expect it to do. As you shared, we were thinking more like, where is the true heart of this brand locally on a map? Point to it. And I think that it also pointed out this like almost like a different side of origin emerged, which is like the origin of someone's like mindset. And I think that because the brands that talk to us on style as identity, but also specifically the brands that we talked to most recently are so open with what worked, what didn't work, like the work that it took to see other people doing something and realize that might not work for me. I'm going to do the work to figure out what actually will. Like, I do think that in a way, like it has that effect on us, but also has effect hopefully on people who are thinking about pursuing this path of like starting their own thing, whether it's in fashion or not. But this belonging of like, there is space for you to come and build here, even if it's not here specifically, like in this industry or selling the kinds of things I do, but like by sharing and being so open with some of the things that I've learned, some of the decisions that I've made, I do think that those brands are creating a space of belonging for other people who want to create. And I think that that's really cool.
Right. Like, Sheila went to New York and then she went back to Chicago. And Nyla was in the fashion industry in downtown New York City. And then both of them were not seeing and not getting what they needed. And so then, Sheila went back to Chicago. And it makes me feel like if you're thinking of starting a fashion brand or thinking about starting anything and you're like, oh, I'm not at the epicenter of it, or I'm not the main narrative. My story isn't a common story. Those can be constraints, right? Because they are out of the fold. But with Sheila and Nyla and brands like Savant and just all the brands we spoke with, what they showed us is like it could be a challenge, but it's also the reason to do it. you don't need to physically be in the epicenter, geographic location of fashion. Wherever you are has informed your mindset or like fueled your spirit in ways that got you into identifying your passions, informing yourself. What they've really shown me is like, don't dismiss that because that's the part of you that's irreplaceable and what's going to propel your work. And I loved seeing that, especially just like how that's manifested into these different collections, especially Sheila's.
Yeah. I will say too that there's something to be said for people who aren't maybe at the epicenter, but are like going home. When we think about Sheila, like she's going home. So like she's creating an epicenter, like a gravitational epicenter now, like to the place where she's determining, like, I'm putting the stake down here. And it's interesting to think about that for Savant Studios because like New York is an epicenter, but in a way, like New York and Brooklyn are not always synonymous in fashion. And so, like, yeah, Mike also came home in the way that Sheila did, but like moved the pin on the map a bit from like maybe like a New York to specifically Brooklyn. And so that also has like a different effect, right? And we see how that takes shape in the ways in which like they're able to make it more than a store and make it like a connection point, a gathering point for the Sunday vibes. Yeah, I think that's really cool how like this epicenter exists from an industry standpoint, but then you have like an epicenter of choosing and like the gravitational pull of like bringing people in, bringing ideas in changes based on that.
Yeah. It had me thinking about ALD, Queens. I'll say it is rooted in Queens. Teddy Santis, right, is from Queens. A lot of the narrative explores his inspiration from Queens. But the store's on Mulberry Street in downtown Manhattan. And, it's just a different play. People get to rep ALD and, represent New York and Queens and different aspects of it. And I mean, what I do love about that brand too is it explores Teddy's brain a bit and the things that he finds inspiring, like that collection he did. He showcased Robert De Niro's artwork or even Porsche's, but like really goes deep into his interests and showcases them. But that is a different play. ALD is clearly going for commercial, right? Opening stores in other hotspot locations. Whereas Soho and Bhavya Ramesh is similar in that way, right? She actively chose a location that she is alongside brands that are more established and have, she's going to an epicenter, just like ALD did. And Savant Studios, Michael's like, I don't want to be the next Target. I want to be a space where we're like, is it a retail? Is it a whatever, whatever? Because it's about capturing that feeling and igniting that spark. And those are really deliberate decisions of where to have your physical space and what that means and what that communicates to people. And I loved, like you're saying, like he's going home and he's planting those roots and he's adding to the story and the fabrication of what Bed-Stuy is and looks like and just the beauty.
Poetry, just the beauty. But also, as you were saying Queens with ALD, I was like, oh my gosh, Lilith NYC. Like we've talked to so many, like some people like building at home, but like Lilith is also Queens, not necessarily like isn't in a Soho yet. But as you were saying that, something else that came through is like how the same thing doesn't work for everyone. There's that point in the conversation with Savant around where you were like fire round listing different things and like the answer to all of them was no. There are some things that we talk to different brands about, right? Like we talked about having a retail location with Bhavya and Savant. We talked about celebrity gifting with Sheila. And we talked about collections with the Øther. And so I think that there are things that are proven to work in every business. Like there are things that it's like, why reinvent the wheel? We've seen this work for most people. Like if you want to cut time and circumvent like trial and error, then you're like, oh, I can just do these things that I'm reading or hearing have worked for most people. But what I thought was interesting is that for a lot of the people we spoke to, like things that work for them were things that they either learned uniquely or were actually different from what worked for the other brands within the same theme. Some people celebrity gift, some don't. And so things are really based on the storytelling, right? Like Bhavya and Sheila, there's like a story there. Actually, both of them might have had heartbreak collections. Like I think Bhavya was saying the poison came from heartbreak. And then Sheila was like, there was like the heart on the pants, like that just iconic design that they have. And so some of them were using storytelling. And then I think Nyla and Michael were rooted in its storytelling, but it was more based on like Nyla's designing based on her identity and like Michael's designing on the inspiration around Brooklyn. So curious what you think here, but that's one of the things that really stood out to me of just like, there are things that we know we've seen work, but if you have the time, either while you're building or before you start building, to think through like maybe the reason why you're choosing to do that, even if you've seen it work for other people, because that might identify areas where you're like, actually, this might not be right for me, even though it's worked for other people. Like maybe this is worth the extra resourcing of finding out, like, do I need to actually do this? Or is there a different way I can do this that's more aligned with my brand mission and some of the things that I want to spend time doing?
Savant Studios, his brand, it comes from within, but it is so clearly fueling a curiosity that he has. He said before, I want this brand to be, it's larger than him. He has these people work with him where he isn't the only face of that brand. And, he goes to Mexico to seek out leathers and all this stuff. And I love how it does truly come from within him, but it is fueled by curiosity for exploration. And with the other brands, it really is an exploration of the self, I think, in a different way. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Exploration of the self is like digging out what's already there versus exploration through the curiosity you're talking about is like going out and seeking like what might not be familiar and bringing it back. Both might not be familiar, to be clear. Like, I think both are really enriching, but it's just the source material is different.
Totally. Right. And like the other, right? Like Nyla's seeking out different Lahiria tie-dye techniques in India. And so it doesn't mean we're not going out, but it's like she's truly exploring the identity and the themes of being an other and like what that means for her and exploring what that means for other people through her art and through her collections. And I feel like there's something going on there.
There is.
You're picking up what I'm putting down. So I get a lot of questions from brands of like, what should I be doing about gifting? Should I be doing it? And like after hearing Mike talk, after hearing Sheila talk and talking with all these other brands about it, I think to your point, like the answer depends. Obviously, celebrity gifting or influencer gifting or whatever is like sick. And I agree fully with what Sheila said is like her mindset is if you give things away and something will come back to you and her clothes were meant to be worn. It reminds me of Naomi Nomi's episode when she's like, is a garment come to life if it's just sitting on a chair the whole time? Like it has to be worn to be given a purpose. And so I'm bought into all of that. But I've also seen brands where their products are very time and talent intensive to create and to gift them away to a bunch of stylists that may or may not put the item on a celebrity. She may never get it back, which then would go back to the whole point of like, you want somebody to wear and cherish these items. That can be really resource constricting for a brand. And so if it's really hurting or just like being something that is creating a lot of stress, like maybe it's not the right time for that or the strategy. Maybe you don't have the same approach that Sheila has. One of her superpowers and her brand is structured in order for her to explore that superpower and have it work for her. But it doesn't mean you go home and you're like, ah, shit, I can't just give everything away, but I should because Sheila's doing it. It's like, that's not what she's saying. That's not what we're saying.
Yeah. And also, I truly didn't feel when she was talking, I was like, oh, it feels like she's combining the gifting with relationship building, which is very different from like, shipping it out and praying to hear back. Like it feels like it's intentional and it almost, in a way, carries like a styling element to it. I know like being a stylist is a completely different career, but still, to me, it felt a bit like the gifting also had a connection relationship element to it, which made it maybe feel a little less like one-sided.
It's strategic, but it's also genuine.
Exactly. Exactly. So to your point, like, yeah, there's no one way to do it. We're into that, like some of the things that already exist, but definitely think through like, yeah, what's going to be the most fruitful version of doing this for me so that you're not resource constrained because that's fun if it's fun, but if it's not fun, most of the times it's not fun.
It's like sending out love letters and being like, is anyone going to write back?
Yeah, you're like, there must be something with the postal service because I haven't gotten any responses. No, you get all your love letters back. Don't even play. Not even play.
Oh, I only want yours back.
Well, yeah, well, same. It's the only one I'm getting back. Something too that we haven't talked about in a while we're doing a little bit of like walk through history lane right now, but remember Carla Fernandez and like how much time if that episode we spent on craft? I feel like that kind of came back. Like Sheila was like, I'm committed to the craft. Not necessarily her words, but that is what I'm remembering right now. But there is some sort of mention of craft.
She is learning suiting right now. She's had a
Yes,
brand for like a decade, right? And she's like, this is what I'm learning. She is absolutely committed to the craft.
committed to the craft. Nyla talks about being really researched in exploring some of the different shapes and like how like she can combine new iterations of it with her culture. Michael taught himself everything he knows now. And then Bhavya, like, don't even get me started. Like, we literally spent a few minutes talking about how, like, each time Bhavya comes out with anything, it's like almost like she's competing with her past selves in how committed she is and like how detailed the designs are. I think you said something around like the snake grip metaphor that you had. Go ahead.
Yeah. So Bhavya Ramesh's brand narrative is as strong as a snake grip, which is not about the craft, but is about the like through lines of every single thing is thought through. And I do think that also is about her craftsmanship. And that is the theme. We're all like, oh, do what works for you and make it authentic and blah, blah, blah. But the through line here is all four people, right? Like we're talking about Sheila Rashid. She is learning suiting. She is so curious and about just continuing to learn and hone her craft. Nyla, she's like, I'm a color nerd, right? She is just deep in that, obsessed. I relate to Michael. I think you and I both share this as well. Is like, he's just curious as fuck. He's just like, wants to learn. He wants to get out there. We're all making the trek just to expand our brains. And Bhavya, hers was interesting because she does have this more engineering background. And there's like this creativity of being a craftsperson while exploring product engineering.
She's also an architect. She's an architect.
Yes. And her emotion, her heartbreak. And so all of that is honing a craft in all their different ways, but all of them are insatiable. Like it's a lifelong pursuit of what exists and what can manifest.
And it shows.
Yeah.
I love that. What else is on your mind, Lola? What else is brewing up there?
I want to know, Frankie, a lot of the people we spoke with highlighted that there is an exclusion in fashion. And I wanted to explore that and wanted to know what has come up for you after hearing these four people share their stories with us.
Yeah. I will say, and maybe you and I have spoken about this, but I don't know if we've spoken about it on the mic, but we definitely have whispered in corners about it together. And I think this might be something I might have even said to you when we first started getting to know each other, which is like, I'm really into fashion, but I'm not always that person that's like wearing all the latest stuff or like wearing all the like top. I mean, I don't even know how to define it, like the house brands or like whatever you would call those. But like, but at the same time, it feels like such an important part of my identity. And even when I'm leaving the house, it's not necessarily like, oh, how are people going to see me in this thing, but more like, how am I going to feel in it? And so I'm glad that some of these people brought it up because I think it goes both ways. It can be when people talk about like haute couture, like fashion is it's gotten so much of its attention because of the exclusivity. So it's kind of hard to detach. And I'm curious what you think about this. It is sometimes kind of hard to detach that from fashion where you're like, think about it. You can't just pop up at a runway. Were you invited? Is there a seat for you? Maybe you can.
So, dude, I saw a reel about this today where this guy was like, what you wear matters. And he was like decked out in the labels where you say, who are you wearing, not what are you wearing? And he's like, I didn't have a reservation. I watched four people go to this restaurant and get turned away. And then I walked up and they're like, oh my God, I love your outfit. And then he got in and had like a bunch of examples like this. And I understood where he was coming from. Like maybe these are places that he was previously, not as like welcomed with open arms. But like what I had seen from that, he had amazing style. But what the story highlighted was the who he was wearing and not how he was wearing it necessarily or like a combo of it. And it made me think like, right, like Michael from Savant Studios was like, if you're a fly person, then getting fly is easy. And it's not about necessarily who you're wearing, but like how you're wearing it, how yourself is shining through in what you're wearing. Anyway, I was just like, okay, yeah, like they saw the dollar signs you spent on this and were like, you're probably important. Come to our restaurant or like whatever. But I was like, you're also a fly person. Like there's other aspects of here that's where the value should be, not on the marketing that you're doing as a vehicle for these brands.
Mm-hmm. And like, what is a fly person? I feel like a fly person is someone where you're like, damn, that person loves who they are, but isn't like putting it on me. Like, and it's kind of what we were talking about with Nyla. It's like they love who they are and they're kind of making me want to do the same. Like, it's like the kind of person where you're like drawn to them because you're just like, damn, I want to drink this person up. So I feel like that is something you can't buy. And the reason you can't buy it is because like you're either like feeling it or you're not. And other people are either feeling it or they're not. And exclusivity doesn't create that in people. It only makes them want to be something they're not versus like just being or something that might be even more reaching, like out, like inclusivity, I think helps people to figure out how to define themselves and find out what like that might look like for them. So that is why we make the emphasis on style here and not necessarily fashion. Like they're related, very much related. They're like in bed together all the time, but it's like not necessarily the same thing.
It's a poly relationship. So as you're talking, I was asking myself, like, who is Fly?
Your son.
Wait, did I tell you he won Best Dressed at my company party and he's not even part of my company?
Oh my God. The plus one, Best Dressed, that's incredible work. What a bright future. Bright present and bright future.
But so, Ellie, the elephant from the New York Liberty team, I was like, she is the flyest person I know. She is the most stylish. She wears the same fucking outfit every other game, only changes like her purse and maybe her shoes, like very light, but the style plus identity. If I could sashay through my way and my day the way Ellie does, those are goals.
Hello? Yeah, Ellie puts it on. She knows what she's doing. And to your point, it's like you don't have to show up with something new every day, but like, what's your aura? And like, what are the ways in which you're like expressing yourself? People pick up on that. People are picking up on Ellie. So no, you coming up with Ellie as the flyest person actually checks for me. I'm not surprised about that one bit. Also, Ellie. Like I know of Ellie. I don't have Ellie's number. It sounds like you know Ellie. So we're gonna have to talk about that later.
We've been seen together.
Yeah. Okay.
Who's on your fly list?
Oh my gosh. I'm not topping Ellie. I'm not even trying. I'm not even trying. Okay. I know you've all been listening to us just shoot the shit over here, but that's how you reflect. How else would you reflect? What are the last few things that you're thinking of, Lola?
That everyone should be thinking about who's on their fly list. It's probably, it could be a mascot or an elder, but follow that and ask yourself why. Also, dude, storytelling, we talked about it, but like Sheila's like, it's all about storytelling now. And I learned that over the years. The Øther, she's like, it's not a collection, it's a mood. And they're kind of taking traditional constructs and they're not like throwing them completely away. It's still like taking what works for them. But I love that.
Yeah, I love that too.
What about you, Frankie Frank?
I think you actually wrote down how we were talking about like using things where you are the product. And I know that's something that I quoted my sister saying when a few things came up. But I want to do less of that in 2025. And it also, to tie it back to why we do this, like we see that in fashion, right? Like fast fashion, we're kind of the product. Like we're part of the life cycle of how like putting out different things quickly that are not well made. People aren't compensated for making them. They also are not sustainable. Like we are part of that life cycle. And so in a way, we are part of the product there, right? Because us purchasing and being part of that fast fashion cycle is what makes them profitable. And so, I think that there are a lot of different places we talked about, it mostly the technology, like using a lot of these platforms and things that have been built and served to us, but not for us. But I will say, like, I'm also trying to find other patterns in my life where I feel like I am part of the product. And that's fine, right? As long as I'm fully aware of the extent of it and like also signed up for it and like down for the ride. But I also just want to make sure I acknowledge it so that I know what's going on.
Yeah, I loved hearing that because it shifts our mindset in terms of who's using who here and who's wearing who. Should we tease our audience on what the next theme is?
We 100% should tease our audience on what the next theme is.
Tease them, Frankie.
I'm trying to tease it without giving it away. I'm going to tell you a riddle. How do you protect your original content while still creating guidelines for people who want to build off of it? what comes up for you? That's what we're going to be covering in the next few episodes.
Riddle me that.
Really? Yeah, I'm like, if your head is spinning, that's okay. It will stop spinning soon when you listen to the next episode. And if it's not, and it was very easy for you to understand what we're saying, then I hope you're excited because it's going to be cool.
It's going to be so cool. Oh my God. As always, we love you.
Yes. Thanks for spending time with us, with Lola and with me.
And Ellie the elephant.
And Ellie. Yes.
Hey everybody, Lola here. Thanks for listening. Style as Identity is part of the Majority Group, which is focused on spotlighting and supporting the brands that make us feel seen. In addition to this podcast, we offer business and strategy advice to brands, have an investment arm, and more. Basically, we want to see you win and do what we can to make it happen. For more info on us, head to themajoritygroup.com. Love ya.